Right. So this is Math 1342, elementary statistics. What we're going to be shooting for today is basically get through the syllabus. That'll take probably about 45 minutes. And then with the time that's left over, we'll try to start getting into the material. On the syllabus, at the top, it says Math 1342, elementary statistics. The 3 means that it's a 3-credit-hour course. The second 3 that's there means that it's 3 college credits. So this is a college credit class. There are 2 sections, and that's what's a little cumbersome about this. There's section 042 and 043. And depending on how you enrolled in this course, you may either be in the 042 course, which means that you'll meet here with us for 1 hour and 20 minutes. And then after that, we'll have a 10-minute break. And then we'll start up for about another half hour of working some problems additionally. So if you're signed up for section 042, you'll see that on your schedule. And that means that after the class, we'll have that 10-minute break, and then we'll do some extra work out of the book. If you're signed up for 043, it means that you're only here for the lecture course, not the support class that follows. So it's a little confusing. 043 just meets here, and then at 11:50, you're done and you can go on about your day. Any questions about the variation between the 2 sections? It's something that we started recently, so I know it's a little confusing. So the lecture portion of the course meets from 10:30 until 11:50 in this classroom on Monday, Wednesdays. The contact info, my name's Christopher Marcus. You can call me Chris, you can call me Christopher, you can call me Marcus. Some people feel it's weird not to use a prefix like professor or mister. I don't really care. So if you prefer that, that's fine. If you want to call me something derogatory, just keep it behind my back so I can't hear it. The email is christopher.marcus@austincc.edu, probably the quickest way to get in touch with me. The website is posted here in the syllabus. But for practical purposes, there's a quicker way to get there. I'll send a link in Blackboard so you can look at ACC's Blackboard to find it. But to get to the website, if you look up course schedule on ACC's website and go to the math courses, just like you did probably to find this class, find my name anywhere in the list, any class that I'm teaching. And if you click on my name, it'll bring up this website. So that's the link for the website. And if you lose your syllabus or need to look it over, because we will change the syllabus a little bit with the homework problems, you can go in here at Math 1342 and you can find a copy of the syllabus right here. So if you just click this and pull it up, you've got everything you need. So easiest way to get there is, again, probably going to find a math course that I'm teaching, click on my name, and it'll go right into the website. And you can find all these other things. So we'll talk more about what's on the website in a minute. The office hours and locations, I'm here at Round Rock Monday, Wednesdays. During those schedules, the office that I'll be in is not in this building. Building 2000 is that building over there. And it's on the 3rd floor at the very end. If you've gone to the chemistry department area, it's in that same office suite. So 3rd floor at the very end, Monday, Wednesdays. I'll also be out in Elgin on Tuesday, Thursdays for a little bit. So if you happen to live closer out that way, you might try finding me over there. If you're gonna come to the office hours, my suggestion is let me know. Office hours doesn't guarantee that I'm in the physical office for all the hours, because there's a lot of other things that we do. Sometimes I get into a conversation with students after class, so the office hours actually go long in the classroom before I ever make it to the office. Sometimes I go run out to go make copies of things during office hours. So if you're going to stop by for office hours, email me ahead of time and let me know, and I'll let you know and say, yep, I will definitely be there at that time and meet you. So you're not standing outside the door wondering, where is he? He said he'd have office hours. So just let me know if you're going to come so you don't get frustrated and we can agree on the time that we'll both be there. The prerequisites for this course, there's some TSI requirements that need to be met legally to be in this class. They sent a roster out recently. I'll go through the roster and check. probably it would be surprising if any more than maybe just one or maybe at most two of you don't meet the prerequisites. If you get an email about that, I'll tell you in the email what you need to do and go from there. Usually it's things like you transferred from a different college and your transcripts haven't been entered into the system yet. And it shows that you don't meet the prereqs. But most of you probably already meet the prereqs. So I'll send out an email, though, if you don't. From a practical standpoint, you need, prerequisite-wise, a little bit of math background. Not a lot. This isn't a math course like algebra or calculus, but you need a little bit of an algebra background, being able to move some things around and add and subtract and deal with stuff like that. But you're not going to bust out a quadratic formula in here or anything like that. We're not going to get into that. This is a math course, but it's not quite like most math classes. So a little algebra will go a long way in this course. The textbook for the class is called Statistics, Unlocking the Power of Data, in its second edition by Locke Morgan. And Locke, basically, there was a guy who was a statistician and he married a mathematician and they had 3 children that all became statisticians. So it's a family of 5 that created this book, and one of the kids, their daughter, got married and decided to hyphenate their name to Locke Morgan. So it's a family thing. We'll talk about the book here in a bit. One way to access the book is through this Wiley Plus course registration, the link that's there. And that link will take you straight to the registration for this course. And we'll talk about what options you have for getting a hold of the book and some of the resources therein. The homework policy. Homework will consist only of handwritten problems straight out of the textbook. This is a change from last semester. Last semester was the first semester using the new book. And we did homework from the book, but we also had online homework. And what happened last semester is we had a lot of problems with the online system. It wasn't compatible with a lot of browsers. Some of the answers were actually incorrect, which is super frustrating in math. You do it wrong and you're like, okay, so what did I do wrong? And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, the book is wrong. So the online homework has been eradicated for this semester, so we'll only have problems straight out of the textbook itself. And I think that'll help a lot of your frustrations go away from those that people last semester experienced. The late homework policy is that if you turn homework in late, you'll get no credit, it won't be received. That's a very harsh statement. And if you've talked to anybody who's had me in the past, they'll probably tell you he's kind of easygoing, he's a nice, reasonable person. They might say derogatory things too, but I'm just hoping and being optimistic that they wouldn't. This statement is actually more harsh than I usually am about it. If you turn in something late, just ask, hey, can I turn in some late homework or something? I'll usually take it, but I'll knock off some points. Typically in the past, if somebody turns a homework set in a week late, I'll knock 10% off of whatever their grade is for that homework. If they try to turn it in 2 weeks later, I'll knock off 20%. 3 weeks later, I'll knock off 30%. So I usually will take it, but just be nice about asking me if I'll receive it. And usually I'm pretty happy to oblige. The lowest homework assignment at the end of the semester will be dropped from your overall grade. We'll talk about what to expect in the grade book here in just a minute. And, oh yeah, the attendance. Oh man, can I bum a sheet of paper from somebody? Just that, any sheet of paper would work. That's good. Somebody started tearing first. Okay. So it says the attendance will likely be taken in each class. I kind of philosophically don't really like attendance. This is a college class. You paid for it. You're all adults. If you want to buy a product or service that you never use, it's your prerogative. I don't care. So what does the attendance thing mean? Well, here's the problem. Once upon a time, some people that got financial aid committed fraud. And because they were fraudulent, we have to take attendance at the beginning of the semester. So here's what I need you to do. Just pass this around, write your name, put a signature, put a date for today. This will go around today. I'll try to remember to ask about it in the next couple classes that we have over the next week or two. And then after that goes by, the attendance will disappear. If you have put your name once on that sheet of paper, officially you attended the course. So that's how we're going to play with this issue of attendance, just for the sake of simplicity. So sign it today, and you'll never have to sign it again, and you will have officially attended the course. All right, withdrawal policy, we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's part of ACC's general policies for the class. Are there any questions so far with anything up until what we've gotten down to now, the attendance homework? Not yet? Okay. The exams, we've got 4 exams in this class. The 4th exam is the final exam. It is not fully cumulative. It is only really quasi-cumulative. There's mostly problems from the last chapters at the very final exam, the very end, but there will be one problem that could have come from exam 3, the previous exam. And I'll prepare you for that as we get there. But we don't go over everything in the last final exam. It focuses mostly on the last parts of the material in this course. The exams are either in class or in the testing center. What we're going to do this semester is we're going to do exam 1 here and then the final here. Exams 2 and 3 are longer, and we're going to put those in the testing center, which is over in building 2000 on the 2nd floor. So I'll give you a heads up on when that's coming and what to expect with the exams. There are no makeup exams, but if you know you're going to be out of town when we've got an exam coming up or something like that, let me know and I'll work around your schedule. The grades, the way they're divvied up, homework accounts for 15% of your overall grade, and the exams are weighted heavier as we go through the course because they are kind of naturally cumulative in nature. So the first exam is 17%, second exam is 20%, third is 23%, and the final counts as 25%. The little range of grades that you can see over to the side, talking about A's, B's, C's, and so on, what that's trying to tell you is basically this. An A is anywhere from a 90 up to infinity. Infinity is just a precaution for me in case there's extra credit and everybody gets hundreds or something like that. What this means is basically this. To be guaranteed an A, you need at least a 90 point anything. As long as you have a 90 point anything, you're guaranteed an A in the class or better. The B range says it goes from an 80 up to a 90. The square bracket means that it includes 80. The parenthesis means it does not include 90. So the minimal grade that you can get and get a B in the class would be an 80.0. And that guarantees that you get a B. What is the highest grade that you theoretically can get and still be in the B range? You could get an 89.9. 999999999, and now a question arises, right? What's the question? Are you gonna round up? Because if I get that grade and I get a B in the class, I'm gonna be livid. The answer is this. Here's how I'm gonna play the game. At the very end of the semester, I will round up all the grades to the next closest integer. What that means is, even if you get an 89.000000001, I'll round that up to a 90. Fair enough? Now, here's the problem with this. I'm just going to warn you now. At the end of the semester, somebody is going to come to me, either by email or in person. They're going to end up with this grade in the class. 88.9. And what are they going to ask me? Can you just round it to an 89 and then round it again to a 90 just so I can get an A? Look, I hate to break it to you. I can't. I got to stop somewhere, okay? I hate the grade game as much as you do. Personally, I wish they'd get rid of the letter grades. I think that's just asinine in today's world. Why? Because what should they do if you get an 88.9? Well, what is an A worth in terms of your GPA? An A is what? It's a 4 point. Oh, so if you get an 88.9, what you really should do is you should take 4.0 and then multiply it times 88.9%, right? And that would give you a GPA of 3.6. That makes more sense to me. But until they do that, I'm going to have to just stick with their rules, play their game, and cut it off at a B in that case. So just to give you a heads up in these scenarios. So this is the scale for the grades. And then, of course, the C's follow a similar pattern, D's, and we don't even talk about F's because nobody wants an F. All right, questions regarding grades, exams. Okay, other things here at the very end of the first page, the learning labs. This is a new link for the Learning Lab resources. If you go to this link and click it, it takes you to this page here. It tells you the schedule for all the campuses. They all have a learning lab where they have tutors. You already paid for it through your tuition, so it's a free service. We have one here at the Round Rock campus. There's also this Round Rock Accelerator tutoring. I don't think they do statistics in the accelerator on this campus. So for statistics, you'll need to go over to the learning lab, which is in building 2000 again. It's up on the 3rd floor just as you get off the elevator. It's right in front of you. So you can go there. I'm going to warn you right now, there are some great tutors, and then there are some tutors that are in transit of becoming great. All right? So the one sign that they still haven't put out there that I wish they would is the sign that simply says results will vary, because you're going to go in there and you're going to find some people know exactly what they're doing. They are professional tutors that just happen to work there part-time. And then you're going to go and find some of the other people just, they're not going to be your speed. So if you go in there and you get really uptight and you have an experience where you walk out and you're saying, I can't believe I wasted my time. I had to tell the tutor how to do the problems. They should pay me for going in there, teaching their tutors how to do math. Relax, breathe. It's okay. You just met one more person on planet Earth that you are temporarily not compatible with. It'll be okay. So take note of their name, walk out, and just remember, okay, next time I go in, I am going to avoid that person like the plague. So just take your time. If you find somebody that really works well with you, it'll be an asset for the rest of the semester. So that's your goal, is to find someone that works well. Also in this list, the new online tutoring. It's got instructions here that you can click on. There's 2 ways the online tutoring works. One is through a third-party company called BrainFuse. The tutoring I've heard through that is okay. The other is there are ACC tutors that are going to be online for the first time this semester. And I checked the list, and some of those tutors actually tutor statistics. So you might also check the online tutoring and see how that goes. If you find someone that's really great at tutoring, either online or on one of the campuses, let everybody else around you know. The other things here that you'll need for the class, the tools down at the bottom. You need a scientific calculator for this course. Graphing calculators are not allowed on the tests. Some people ask, why don't you let us use a graphing calculator? And the answer is simple. We're not allowed to require you to have a graphing calculator. So it's not fair, in my opinion, that somebody has an advantage of a graphing calculator because of financial, economic, or socioeconomic position in life. So in order to make this fair for everybody, a scientific calculator makes it kind of a level playing field. The ones that are listed here, the 2 calculators that are listed here as a suggestion, the one I like is personally the Casio. It looks something like, where is it? Yeah, it's this one. Oh, here, Target has it. That's great. All right, looks like this. It has a white cover on it. It's no more than $20 anywhere you go. You can find it at Target. You find it now at Walmart, easy to find. The TI that's listed is just as good. It's very similar to the Casio, but the TI, usually you have to go to like Office Depot to find that particular model. If you have a calculator you like that's scientific, great, don't buy one. The reason I suggest these allow you to type in large formulas with fractions in them and square roots. exactly the way you have it written on your paper. So you can type it in fairly easily and see exactly what you did or didn't do correctly as you wrote it in. Be patient with the calculators. A lot of people buy these and they hit the equal sign and it spits out a fraction, or it spits out square root of 47. And they're like, no, 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 I needed the number. Well, that is the number, but you were hoping for the decimal. If you do that, don't panic. There's a button on each one that turns the answers into decimals. On the Casio, it's the S to D button, standard to decimal. On the TI, it has two backward triangles, two triangles facing away from each other, and it changes to decimal. So it just takes a little time to get used to these. Suggestion though, pick the calculator you're going to use for the rest of the semester, for all the tests, for all your homework, etc., because you want to be comfortable going into the test. You don't want to get something that you're not familiar with when you go to take a test. Any questions about calculator, learning labs, grades? No? All right. Last few things here talks about Wiley Plus and StatKey. Wiley Plus we'll talk about in a minute. That's in regards to the book and the online portal. StatKey is part of the data sets we're going to use, but it's accessible totally free of charge. It's external to the book. So you don't have to have Wiley Plus to access StatKey. Last thing on this side of the page, last day to withdraw is the 29th of April. Hopefully you won't need to, but should you need to, you've got until the 29th of April to withdraw. Okay, other things here on the second page. The calendar is just a tentative calendar. It tells you about the speed at which we need to go through the course and when the exams will occur. The first one occurs around week 4. The next one, exam 2, is around week 8. So it just gives you a ballpark of when they will occur. Things might get changed up, just depends on how the semester goes. The other thing here talks about how to get the book. The most common ways to get Wiley Plus are listed here as options A, B, and C. Now, because our homework is only out of the textbook, if you're able to find a used textbook, you can just get the used textbook. You don't have to get access to Wiley Plus. So that's just an option. If you want to get Wiley Plus, these options talk about the different ways to do so. The first option, option A, just get Wiley Plus access only. It's $90. It's everything you need. The book is available. There's videos available on there. If you want to do the homework that was assigned as online homework last fall, just to work some extra problems, they're not required. You can. They're available, free of penalty. You don't get graded on them. The only drawback about option A is you can't download the book and you won't have a physical book in front of you. Option B kind of alleviates that problem a little bit. It's around $135. You can get access to Wiley Plus and you get a loose leaf book. Did anyone go with a loose leaf book? You've got one. Mind if I hold it up and show it? So if you get the loose leaf with the Wiley Plus, usually the way it works, Wiley Plus is here on the back. The access code is in here. The loose leaf is 3-hole punched. And this is a really nice way of having a physical book. If you get tired of looking at a screen or if you plan on going places where you may not have internet access, you can still get the book here. The only suggestion I have about this, the con is that these pages are very delicate. So when you go to put this in a 3-ring binder, don't put it all in a 3-ring binder. The suggestion is only put the sections that will get you up to the next upcoming exam in your binder. So you can put 1.1 all the way up to section 2.4 in a binder and go through that. After we take exam 1, you might take that out of your binder and then stick in the sections 2.5 up to 4.3 and so on. That way it puts less wear and tear on the book and it's easier to carry for you. So, but a really great option to have a physical copy on hand if you like having a book that you can just flip through the pages. And option C, this one is a little different. It's a little less expensive, about $113-ish. Wiley Access, and then you can download the e-textbook. So no physical book, but you've got a downloadable book. Now, the Wiley Plus stuff, while we're on the topic of Wiley Plus, let me bring it up here. Option 2 talks about buying it in the bookstore. The bookstores usually have the loose leaf with the Wiley Plus access, and it varies, but it's probably about $140. What you're going to see with the Wiley Plus stuff is this. Wiley Plus, when you go to log in, after you register for Wiley Plus, if you choose that route, you'll register. When you log in, you'll hit login for future reference, and it gives you two options. You'll always go with this one, not the next generation. Just go with this one. So this is when you log back in and have already registered. When you register, you can do a 14-day trial. So for those that are unsure, hey, should I do Wiley Plus or should I just get a used book or what should I do? What you should do is you should register for Wiley Plus as a 14-day trial. See if you like it. If you decide that you just absolutely hate it and you only want the text, order a textbook, and while you're waiting for it to come in, just keep using Wiley Plus until you run out of your 14-day trial. That's the suggestion with the Wiley Plus stuff. Try the trial out to see how you like it, and then decide what you're going to do from there. When you log in, you'll use your email account that you registered with and your password. When you go in, it'll look something like this. Come on, come on. And there'll be a few things that you can access in here. So for example, the book. The most common way people were accessing the book last semester, there's a link here, Read, Study, Practice. The Read, Study, Practice link will allow you to get to the book, and you can pick what chapter and what section you want to work with. So for example, we'll start in section 1.2 today, and then here's the book, and you can go through it. They'll have little videos here and there, so there's a few extra perks. Again, if you want to go and work on what was assigned last semester online, you can click on the assignments. There are no due dates, but they're just extra problems if you'd like to try to work through them or practice before an exam or whatever. Questions about Wiley Plus? No? Maybe? All right. So this is how it'll work with Wiley Plus and the book in general. The homework problems that you're assigned are listed down here. The numbers for the problems are very weird in this book. If you notice, they all have whatever chapter they're out of is the first number, a period, and then after that, a number for the problem. What makes this awkward is the following. If you notice 1, 1, 1, 2, and 1, 3, those first three sections, the problem numbers keep getting bigger. What they basically did is they took a bunch of problems and they ordered them from 1.1 to 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, and just kept numbering the problems until they decided to quit. What makes this super awkward is you don't know what problems start in section 1.2. You don't know what problems start in section 1.3. Why? Because you don't know where the cutoff is. You know number 43, problem 43 comes out of 1.2, section 1.2, but you don't know where it starts. So it's the only weird thing about the book. You kind of have to work through the book to feel where things start and where things finish. Just show you here. If you scroll through this, these are examples, examples, examples. Examples, examples, blah, 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 more stuff, examples. And then the exercises look like this. It turns out problem 28 is the very first problem out of section 1.2. So the numbering system's a little quirky with problems. But other than that, it's not very hard to find where they're at. It'll either say exercises or skill builder, and then give you instructions on what to do for the problems. Questions about where the problems are? No? All right, so what you'll do is this. You'll work the problems, and then they'll have a due date. You'll turn them in when they're due, and I'll grade them and then get them back to you hopefully within 1 week time. The due dates for the homework and exams are on the website. So if you go to this page, you probably notice there is a calendar down here. This calendar doesn't have anything for our class because we're Monday, Wednesday. So if you look down here, next week, Monday and Wednesday have nothing. But if you click over into February, you'll start to see stuff is posted. So we are going to be red. And if you click on Statistics Homework 1, which happens to be on February 4th, you'll see sections 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 are all due February 4th. So those problems for those sections will be turned in class on February 4th. And what I'll try to do, this is as far as the calendar goes, I'll try to update it between every exam. So you'll know when the homework and the next exam will come. So right now, the first homework is this one, February 4th. We said for the first 3 sections, 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. The next one is on the 11th for sections 2.1 and 2.2. And then the next one after that, a week later, occurs on a Monday. This is tentative. It could change, but we're planning on this. So the very last one that's posted here, the 18th of February, homework 3 covers sections 2.3 and 2.4. Exam 1 covers these sections here. Exam 1 is going to be in class, and exam 1 you can only use scientific calculators for. So this is the way the due dates and the exams will appear once we finalize the dates that we're going to have for homework and exams. Questions about that?
Is it TI-83?
TI-83. It's a graphing calculator. Yeah, I wouldn't use it. Yeah, you can't use that one for the tests. Yeah, the scientific ones are really worth your while in the end. Yeah. Other questions on that? Yeah, and if you have other questions on calculators, like if you have one and you're not sure, if you have a scientific and you're not sure if it's worth having for the course, you can ask me and I'm happy to give you a 2 cents worth of opinion on it, explaining what's good or bad about it if I know it. So all homework will appear here, all exams. If you go back and look at last semester, you'll see a mess of stuff. This is kind of how this will look as we keep on going through the semester. If there's long stretches for our exams, that's because they will be in the testing center. So testing center exams will have about a 1-week window where you can go and take them anytime in that roughly 1-week frame and get the exam out of the way. All right, so this is what to expect with the homework and exam dates. The other question that's going to come up here with the homework probably, down at the bottom, it says with this little asterisk in the syllabus, problems that use StatKey need a screenshot. What that means is this. When we get to a place where we need to use something called StatKey, it's a free website. You bring it up, and then you do whatever you're supposed to with it. You bring something up, you get a data set, you get a graph, whatever it is you're supposed to get. If you're supposed to use StatKey for that problem, this should be printed out with your homework. Why? Because we need to have some proof of proficiency using some kind of statistical-like software. So anything that has StatKey requires a printout to accompany the homework. StatKey has its own quirks. As we go through the semester, I'll try to guide you through it, but be patient with it. One of the things here is, for example, the data sets are listed over in the top left. They're not always listed very nicely. And the other thing is when you get to the StatKey homepage, a lot of times you have questions about, ooh, are we supposed to do this one or that one? You get confused about where to go. But as the semester goes on, I'll try to show you in class what to expect and where to go and how to use it. So I'll try to help you, but just be patient with it. It's kind of quirky at times. Yeah. The other question regarding homework sometimes will be, where do the grades appear? So homework due dates are here. StatKey problems are printed and then accompany your homework when you turn it in. The grades are going to be back on this web page right here under the grades link. This is from fall. It'll look real similar for spring. And if you look at the grade book from fall, you can imagine the class did not look exactly like this. We did not have Chris Jenner and Katy Perry and Katherine Heigl all in the same classroom. So the way this is going to work is as follows. I have a list of randomly ordered celebrity names. When you turn in your first homework, I'm going to give you one randomly. I'll hand it back. That'll be your name in the grade book for the rest of the semester. This helps keep it private, so we're still adhering to FERPA. We don't have your name or student ID. Don't tell anybody who you are in the celebrity grade book. And if you get somebody that you absolutely just can't stand, I've only had this happen once, try to bear with whoever you get. But I had one person, they got some politician that I didn't even know who it was, and they said, I just don't agree with that person at all. Fine, we'll work with you on that. But if you can deal with whoever you get, please do so. It makes it a lot easier. Again, these are randomly chosen. I am not trying to tell you something about who you are as a person, what kind of personality traits you have. It's just a randomly chosen celebrity name for you for the sake of the grade book. The grades are going to appear like this. These kind of orange colored ones here represented homework problems from the textbook, the handwritten problems from last semester. So the first homework assignment even last semester had sections 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. The blue columns we won't have. Those were for online homework from last semester. So you won't have any of the blue ones. And then at the very, very end, you can see that there's these pink columns, kind of a red columns for exams. And then at the very end of the semester, the overall grade in the class was rounded up and the letter grade was provided for that person. Now, as you look at the grades, you might be looking at how many Fs there were. I'm not that mean, okay? I'm not trying to fail everybody. If somebody has an F up there, they probably deserved it. It's not like I'm taking a hammer and I'm sitting there and I'm like, yes, F, kink. Look, take a look. F. How many exams is the person missing? 3 exams. How many homeworks did they miss? A lot. Did they deserve an F? They totally deserved an F. If you look at all of the people that actually did all of the exams and did all of the homework, you'll be hard-pressed to find anybody that scored less than about a 72 in the class. So do all the homework, do all the exams, and you will very likely pass the class. So right here, a 71. And most of this, a 71, came from a bunch of zeros in their homework. So the homework can play in your favor, it can play against you. Be careful with homework. It's worth 15% of your grade. If your tests end up putting you at a 92 average at the end of the semester, but you do no homework, congratulations, you've got a 77 in the class. You don't want that. So if you do well on the homework, it'll pull your overall grade up, but if you do poorly on the homework, it will definitely pull it down. Do well on the homework, try to do as best you can on the test, and you should be in good shape for the semester. At the end of the semester, one of the assignments, lowest grades, gets dropped. The way that works is over here in the handwritten assignments. Whichever was your lowest will be dropped from the course average. So looking right here, this person, it looks like Bruce Springsteen chose to drop homework 7 because they didn't do it, but they did all the others. The way you want to play this game is very simple. The homework is going to probably get harder as the semester goes on. So what you want to do is you want to do something more like Daniel Craig. All of these did a great job. Well, if all of these, they get hundreds or A's on all of their homework at the very end, it makes total sense. I want to study for the final exam. I don't want to do the last assignment. Well, if you've got hundreds on everything else, don't do the last assignment. Why? Because it's going to get dropped. So one whole column gets dropped at the very end. But the way to play the game is do your best right now, because later on something may happen in life that forces you to take a 0 on an assignment, or allows you at the very end to kind of make your life easier and just study for the final and not worry about the last assignment. Questions on that? All right. Nice.
I have a question about the screenshot printout. Are you able to save that
Yes,
screenshot and then go back and print it later?
Yeah, so for the screenshots, when we get there with StatKey, I'll try to remind us how to do it, but there's 2 main ways of going about it. Yeah, And then you can either do them individual screenshots that are printed, or you can take a screenshot and put it into a Google Doc or a Word document and just put a bunch of them in there and print out that one page. Yeah.
So years ago, I think it was called MiniTab. You couldn't use it on MacBooks.
Right.
Can you use this on a Mac?
StatKey is just a website, so you should be able to use it on anything.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's a MacBook or a Windows-based, it should work. Yeah. And we got rid of MiniTab because of those issues. Yeah. Other questions about it? All right. Well, the other thing here to mention very briefly about the homework is, if you notice, there's this highlighted yellow part. It's just telling us that homework coming from the material out of exam 2, exam 3, and exam 4 has not been finalized. So all of the homework problems for the exam 1 material, those are fixed. I'm not going to be changing them or adding or doing anything with those. But the homework that comes up in E2, E3, and E4, I will be adding more problems because we're doing all of our homework straight from the book. So the place to go to find that will be on the website, and click the syllabus link and see which problems have been added. So I'll try to get those added here in the next couple of weeks, at least for the exam 2 material stuff. All right, that covers the bulk of what we need to hit in this class for the syllabus. The rest of this is actually fine print. So page 2 of the syllabus, the front part just tells you about the class. So this particular class is a lecture course, and it talks about what we're going to cover. If you're curious, down at the bottom, there's an acronym, SLO. SLO stands for Student Learning Objective. And what they're referring to, if you want to read this later, when they're telling you certain SLOs are supposed to be met through this, the learning objectives, or LOs, are listed right here as course objectives. So that's just the way that ACC likes to state what we're going to be covering. But if you want a better feel, you can look through it in the book. The other thing that's here, on the back side of this page, in the finer print, all of the general policies for ACC. Now, we're not going to go through this. One day, I am going to come to class, maybe in 30 years, when I have some duct tape bifocals on, and I'm going to read this in a monotone voice. It's going to be great. But I can't do it now. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to just touch on a couple things real quick. The withdrawal policy, its wording says, if you need to withdraw, it's your responsibility as a student to do so. However, the instructor can withdraw you if they need to. I don't withdraw people. You only get 6 withdrawals in your bachelor degree. So I don't withdraw people. If today's your last day and you never come back and you're like, oh, he'll just withdraw me, wrong. If today's your last day and you never come back and you don't do anything else about it, you're going to get an F at the end of the semester. So if you need to withdraw for any reason, make sure to withdraw. The only time I've withdrawn people usually is if they email me and say, hey, I can't access the thing. It's not letting me withdraw myself. Could you help me? And then I'll try to go in and withdraw somebody. But usually I don't withdraw anybody. Other things here, incomplete grades. That doesn't apply to probably anybody in the class, so we won't worry about it unless that happens to you. The scholastic dishonesty statement should just say, be honest, period. You've got some student rights and responsibilities here that it talks about. The accommodations. This one talks about an SAS, or Student Accessibility Services Office. If you happen to have a letter from them for accommodations in the class, like a note taker, extended test time, something like that, just give me the letter. I'll work with you on it. If you feel like you should have some kind of an accommodation, you can go to their office and they can help decide what would be best suited for your needs. The other things that are listed here, there's a quick safety statement, handgun policy. ACC email is the only way we will talk about grades. So if you send an email to me through a generic Gmail or Yahoo account, we can't talk grades there. So ACC email is the official way we do it. And down at the bottom, it talks a little bit about the testing center, which we'll talk about when it's time to take a test in the testing center, and some resources you have like the tutoring labs. Whew. If you want to read all the details, you're welcome to do so, but on your own time. questions regarding the syllabus, the class, anything in general? Whew, that just takes time. Every semester. I tell you, I've been real tempted to just make a video of going through the syllabus before class starts, and then on day one, just go straight into teaching. Of course, I'm afraid people would be freaked out, but maybe one day that'll be the way to get around that. Questions? Any questions at all? All right. One of the other things that I'm going to try to provide for you, lecture notes from last semester have been archived. So I'll try to provide you with a link to some PDF files for the lecture notes. It's missing some at the beginning of the semester, so I'll be adding some of those as we go on through this semester. But after that, I won't be adding them. You'll just have access to the old lecture notes. It'll be the same material. All right, now, how many of you are taking the class because you have to for your degree? There is the truth of the matter. Nobody in here would take this class for fun. Why not?
I actually also have been interested in this class since I first heard it.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
It is required, but and I'm not good at math. But I thought this was a very interesting concept.
It's required, but you're looking forward to the class.
Yeah.
How many of you are definitely not looking forward to this class? Oh yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Trust me, it's a lot easier from this side of the room. If it's any comfort to you, the first time I had to enroll in a math course in college, I told them I'm not doing it. I said, I hate math, I'm not going to enroll. They said, well, you're going to need a math class to get a degree. I said, yeah, maybe, but I'll worry about that later. So I avoided math classes for a long time. Eventually, I transferred to a different school, and they said, well, you've got to take a math class to get your degree. Why don't we put you in statistics? It's not mathy in the normal sense. They just wrote me in. So the first day of class, I go to all the classes, I go to statistics. I'll never forget this. I sat in the far back corner, as far away from the board as I could get. The syllabus got passed around, and as soon as I saw what was going to be covered, within 2 minutes, I was out of the room in the admissions office asking them to withdraw me immediately. I was not going to take it. So I share your sense of dread for those of you that don't want to be here. At the same time, I'll try to make it as nice as possible. It's not a bad course. I'll try to prepare you for it. There are some little things here and there that kind of get people off guard. And for those of you that are math phobes or don't like math at all, let's just get this out of the way. Here is the formula sheet off of the website that we will use later. We're just going to get this out of the way now. Okay, you don't need to get out a paper sack. You're not going to hyperventilate. In the nose, out the mouth. Breathe, breathe, breathe. I shouldn't be here. I should withdraw like he said. No, don't withdraw. You're going to be fine. Here's the good news. We go through this line by line in almost the course of about 6 or 7 weeks, maybe even 8 weeks. We will go through it very slowly. When it comes time to take the exam, I will give you a sheet that has the formulas on it. You do not have to memorize these formulas. All right. Now that we've got the worst part about the math aspect out of the way, let's go ahead and start dealing with the statistics aspect of the course. The first section that we're going to cover here is 1.2. We'll come back and do 1.1 a little later. But 1.2 talks about where we get our data from. And it is called sampling. There's a few terms or words that we need to define. The first word is population. And the population is just a specific group of individuals. It's usually very large. Usually very large. Anybody else need to put their name on this attendance sheet for today? Didn't put their name on it. Okay. The thing about it is that the population is usually so large that it's difficult sometimes to get data from every one of the specific individuals in it. So what we often do is create a sample. And the sample is simply a small group taken from the population. And we can abbreviate population, P-O-P with a dot. Now, to get a feel for how this works and why we do this, just as an example, every time election season is coming around, you hear about people doing pre-polling because you're interested in knowing who's going to be elected in the next for the next presidential 4-year term. So we do some pre-polling to find out what's going to happen. Now, here's the question with this thing about pre-polling. Specifically, which people would we consider to be part of the population? Who would we be concerned about in terms of the individuals? Okay, there's a start. All Americans, because in order to vote, you have to be an American citizen. All right.
Eligible voters.
All right, there's another question. Do all Americans vote? Can all Americans vote? Not all Americans can vote. Why? Because some of them are underage. They have felonies. Guaranteeably, they cannot go down and there's an R word I'm looking for, register to vote. There we go. So the only people that we have a hope of voting are those that are registered voters. So it seems reasonable in terms of the population we should be worried about here is the group of all registered voters. All registered voters. And this also helps us in terms of a physical aspect. Do all the registered voters live in the US? No. There are people that are overseas that vote every election season. What are they doing? Some of them are in the military, some of them are missionaries. They can all go to an embassy or something like it in order to place their vote. But we know that they have to be registered. Now here's the question. If we're trying to access all registered voters, how would we go find out who each of them plans to vote for?
You break it down between parties.
Usually they're bipartisan, right? They'll vote Democrat or Republican. How do you find out who somebody's going to vote for? You've got to ask them. Yeah, census, a survey. You've got to ask them. There's no other way you can know. You're not clairvoyant. So if you go and you ask them, how are you going to ask all the registered voters? What could be some of the problems that you'd run across trying to access every registered voter while asking them? What's that? There we go. Okay, so different ways of polling. We used to do phones. Now we've moved to social media and surveys online, stuff like that. Yep. Can you access everybody? Will every one of the registered voters reply to those surveys? No. How are you going to access every one of them? You
Offer
could,
money.
in a certain sense, offer money, right? There you go, some incentive. Here's the issue. Let's say that you were trying to hunt down every particular registered voter. Some of them are going to be easy to find. Social media is all it takes. A quick phone call is all it takes. Some of them, though, are going to be very difficult to contact. Does that mean they can't be contacted? Not necessarily, but the problem is they're going to be very hard to find. Well, you can find them. The only thing is it's going to cost money. So in this particular case, this is a really nice example where the problem is that it's not feasible to contact each registered voter. And that's either due to economic reasons or otherwise, maybe political reasons. There's a bunch of reasons that we might not be able to get in touch with them. So what we would do, since we can't get all of them, we might create a sample just to get an idea of who's going to vote for which candidate. Well, let's say we decide to take a sample in a certain way. What if we create a sample by going to New York City and polling people at 42nd and Broadway? And just envision this. You're out there with your clipboard at 42nd and Broadway trying to stop people and ask them. Doesn't sound like a very good idea to me. There's another problem with this idea of doing it, aside from the fact that it probably isn't going to work very well, and that is this. If you're able to stop somebody and ask them, and they give you an honest answer, is it going to be very representative of the entire population by focusing on the people that are near 42nd and Broadway in New York City? Why not?
It's only a small percentage of the whole, I don't know the area very well, but people are gonna vote the same in favor.
Yeah, there's an issue with this. If you think about all registered voters, and you think about the registered voters that are walking around 42nd and Broadway, what would the people in the Northeast probably be voting for if you had to pick a Democratic or Republican party? Most of the people in the Northeast vote Democrat. So the problem with this sample is this is going to probably be too Democratic versus all registered voters. So this is probably a bad sample, or at least one that we would call biased. ... We would say it's going to be too Democratic. I love watching every election season when they pull up the map about who's voting in the states and all that. I swear, if you could just take a little knife and cut off the crust, the coasts of the U.S. and form a new nation, you would have a purely Democratic nation. And if you left everything in the middle, you'd end up with a Republican nation. It's like the coasts agree with each other, but they just don't agree with everybody in the middle, and vice versa. It's so weird to look at. It's changed a little in the years, but it's still got some issues. So it's biased. Well, now the question is, what does it mean to be biased? What is bias? Bias is when the sample does not reflect the population very well. Sample does not reflect the population well. And there's different types of bias that come up. So why don't we just go ahead and list some sources of bias. and discuss kind of how these occur or what they do in terms of the overall data. Sample does not reflect the population well. The first one, the book has one called sample bias. Sample bias is based on how the sample was formed or created. And usually it deals with a location that's too specific or a time and a place that was too specific. So this is usually from a specific location or time, not including all people. So the New York City example is a perfect one of this. Not everybody happens to go by 42nd and Broadway in New York City. We don't. I don't have plans of that today. That'd be nice, but not going to happen. So being too specific in the location or the time is one of the problems. Even surveys online, problematic. Not everybody likes to take a survey online. It's too specific. You're targeting a very specific group. So that'll create some bias. Sometimes people call this a convenient sample because you conveniently got some people that happen to be in a specific area at a specific time. And that's what generated the bias. Other ones that come up here in our sources of bias, voluntary response. Voluntary response. Here's where this could become problematic. Let's say we wanted to go find out what % of people wash their hands after using a public restroom. So we go grab a clipboard and a pen, and we go out here in the hallway, and we just stand outside the restroom doors. And what are we going to do? You can see how this is going to go, right? Did you wash your hands? Yes. Did you wash your hands, by the way? Yes. What are they going to be doing? They're going to be lying. So the problem when you ask a question in a survey situation, voluntary response can generate a lie. And if you want to just put down the example, you can put down the restroom and washing. People are going to lie about that. No doubt about it. People lie about washing their hands. So what would be your next step in trying to find out actually what proportion or % of people wash their hands after using a public restroom, trying to avoid this kind of bias? Okay, so now we're brazen and bold. We go into the restroom and stand off to the side with our clipboard and pen. What's going to happen?
Everybody's gonna wash their hands.
Everybody's going to wash their hands. I have mixed emotions on this one. Why? I can see how this goes two ways. One is somebody finishes their business and they see the person scribbling and making notes, so they feel like they better wash their hands. But I think this could actually work in the opposite direction. Why? I can just imagine going in there, standing, doing my business, thinking the whole time, what is that perv looking at? Just hoping to get out of the bathroom as quickly as possible. I may not even be able to do my business. So this could cause somebody to go to the bathroom but quickly run out and not wash their hands because they're being monitored. And that would also create bias if that person normally washes their hands. All right, how would we get around that issue of bias? What might be a better way of doing this?
Wash your hands, pretend like they're not even taking the sample.
Okay, so this is going to be awkward. What are we going to do? Just wash our hands with the clipboard next to us for 2 hours? Oh yeah, good seeing you again. Okay. The camera, I love it. I love it. Okay, so probably the best way to do this to get a non-bias or less biased result is to, keep in mind in the US, illegally install a camera in the restrooms. you cannot legally install cameras in US restrooms. But boy, if you could really eliminate the bias. Now, the Mythbusters were actually asked, if you've ever watched Mythbusters, they were asked to do something of this nature to try to find out what % of people wash their hands. Knowing it would be illegal to put a camera in the restrooms, what they did was clever. Every one of the stall doors had a counter on it as it opened and shut. Every faucet at the sink had a counter on it, and it was automatic, and as soon as you put your hands on, it would count when a person came and washed their hands. It would click on and count, then it would shut off. So they tried to pair up how many times the door opened and closed and how many times the faucet came on. Pretty clever way to get around the camera issue.
But is it an automatic thing?
There's another
Stick
problem.
hands there, it goes off. And then you
So they didn't count the soap dispenser either. It's not washing your hands unless you use soap.
Okay, so there could be some issues. Let's assume that the soap wasn't an issue for a moment, just for the sake of simplicity. I totally agree. If you're not using soap, what are you doing with your hands? But what bias could still come from the faucet counter and the door counter? What kind of ways could we see bias unfold? Anybody that has kids knows the bathroom. And they know that most of the time you're not in the bathroom, especially with toddlers. You're not in there because they need to go to the bathroom and then wash their hands. A lot of times you're just in there because something gross happened outside the restroom. What's going to happen? You're going to take your kids in there and they're going to start to go in there and they're going to use the faucet to wash their hands. What do kids do when they start to use the faucet? They play. Oh, cool. What did you do? You just counted 3 hand washings that didn't correspond to any use of a toilet. So you've got too many hand washings. Is there any way that we might accidentally count too many in the other way? Not the hand washings, but maybe overcount using the bathroom? Cleaning could cause us to miscount. What happens when you try to use the bathroom and you go in there and the stall door is not perfectly aligned? It bounces. And you know how this goes. The hinges aren't quite right. You go in there, you're ready to do your business. All right, go ahead, I'm gonna close the door. And you shut the door, and then all of a sudden, what does it do? It opens. So then what do you start to do? You're not about to do your business with the door partially cracked. We know that. So you start to play with the door, and all of a sudden, how many times have you been counted? 5, 10, 20. And then when you can't get the door to line up and you even tried to lift the door, you know you've done this. You've lifted the door to try to get the lock to align and it still won't work. You've counted yourself 10 times and then what do you finally do? We've all done it. Either that or you've done the impossible reach, right? Either way, you probably counted too many toilet uses versus the number of times you washed your hands. So even the Mythbusters, I love the idea that they used, but there's still probably going to be bias in their results. Oh yeah, you'd have to do it all across the US. In fact, they did a survey recently that I was reading, and they said the least likely group of people to wash their hands happened to be men, no surprise, at Atlanta Stadium during the sports games. Isn't that interesting? And where's the NFL going to be played? Glad I'm not having a lemonade there. Yeah, so in order to get a good result, we'd actually have to go everywhere in the US because people are going to wash their hands differently in different environments. A sporting event has a different proportion of people that are washing them versus the people over near the chemistry lab at ACC. So yeah, you'd need to have a nice sample all over. Now, the whole response issue, as long as you can respond, there's another type of bias that can come up. And it is called non-response bias. And all of you, I promise, have probably generated this at one point or another. Phone rings. You don't recognize the number. You pick it up. Hi, Do you have a moment to take a quick survey? What do? You hang up. What did you just create? Non-response bias. So this is where you gave no answer. Yeah, we all do this. I had the misfortune of answering one of those calls about a year or two ago. And I started having a conversation with the person. And then when they started to ask for some information, I felt so bad that I had talked to the person. I said, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm just going to have to leave you with some non-response bias. Click. I warned you. I warned you. But we all do it. We all do it. It always happens. The last type of bias that can come up here that is common, wording can always generate bias. Wording can always generate bias. And the reason wording can generate bias is because, especially if you read like the amendments when the election season comes around, vote yes on Amendment 13B. Have you ever read the amendments? Has anyone tried to read one of those amendments? And what is it like? It's like this long, and they use double talk. And at the very end, you have to choose yes or no. So the problem with wording is oftentimes this can be confusing. It can be very confusing. And this comes up in several different areas where you'll see this. One thing, for example, if you go back to the website and you want to play around, over here there's a link that says survey questions create bias. And this talks about an article. You don't have to read the whole thing, but there's some interesting things. 0.8% of the UK population are Jedi Knights, according to a survey. How are you going to argue that? I don't know. If that's what they believe they are, okay. Other things that came up here. Let's see. Oh yeah, only 2 out of 10 Roman Catholics in Mexico selected their correct religion in a survey. Why? All you got to do is get your wording wrong in the survey and people won't know how to answer correctly. So
I saw a survey once that was like, are you for women's suffrage? And a lot of people said no, it's not suffrage, it's like suffering.
yeah, suffrage versus suffering, depending on how the word is being used. In fact, in this article, it says this, like they compared 2 different sentences. Did you watch TV while you were driving to work this morning? Or did you look at a TV set out of a car window? Those are 2 very different questions. None of us probably want to admit to watching television while we were driving to work. But if we happen to glance over and see television outside or in somebody else's car, like the kids are playing on a tablet or watching a movie, we might have seen something outside of our car windows. So yeah, any type of wording can change things. In practice, what people do is they do a preliminary survey, they ask the questions, they get the results. They go back to the people and they say, this is what we were asking you and looking for. Is this really what you thought? And whenever that comes up that the person answered incorrectly or got confused, the people that wrote the survey go back and rewrite those confusing questions to try to make the wording clear. So things that happen with these. But bias everywhere can come up. So one of the things I want you to take home from this class in particular, be on the guard for bias. Always, always, there are things that are posted out there with bias. How many of you went to Rate My Professor to see how this professor is in the classroom? You checked. You checked, and you probably believed Rate My Professor. Scary. I quit looking. I don't even want to know. But here's the thing. On Rate My Professor, what would the population really be? You looked up my ratings, and you were worried about my ratings probably as they pertain to statistics. What would the population best be described as? What group of specific individuals would be the population? Every student that has ever taken Math 1342 from me at ACC. Did all of those students put something on Rate My Professor? No. You've got a sample. What kind of students put something out there on Rate My Professor?
People that really like you, really hate you.
It's a bipolar response, yeah. They either really loved the way you taught or they hated the class in its entire totality. So when you go to Rate My Professor, you see these split kind of decisions of these people that responded, but it doesn't give you a clear view. So what I want you to do is whenever you see any statistics ever posted online, wherever, the first thing that you should ask is, where did you get the data? How did you collect it? And what were you asking? That'll give you a better sense as to whether or not you feel comfortable with the results that they got. All right, I think we're going to stop there for now. That's a good place to stop. We get out at 11:50. If you have any questions, I am happy to help you. Otherwise, we will pick up and continue with this on Monday.